Next we have an article at bibliothekpleiades.net entitled Explorations in Grand Canyon. The original April 5th, 1909 article from the Arizona Gazette. Subtitle, Mysteries of Immense Rich Cavern Being Brought to Light. Remarkable finds indicating ancient people migrated from the Orient. And back then, the Orient was everything across the Atlantic Ocean, on the other side of Europe. The Orient held a lot more back then. The Orient included Egypt, let me put it that way, to the people of 1909. And the article begins, the latest news of the progress of the explorations of what is now regarded by scientists as not only the oldest archaeological discovery in the U.S., but one of the most valuable in the world, which was mentioned some time ago in the Gazette, a few months, was brought to the city yesterday by G.E. Kinkaid, the explorer who found the great underground citadel of the Grand Canyon during a trip from Green River, Wyoming, down the Colorado, in a wooden boat, to Yuma several months ago. According to the story related to the Gazette by Mr. Kinkaid, the archaeologists of the Smithsonian Institute, which is financing the expeditions, have made discoveries which almost conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern, hewn in solid rock by human hands, was of Oriental origin, possibly Egypt, and tracing back to Ramses. If their theories are borne out by the translation of the tablets engraved with hieroglyphics, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, their ancient arts, who they were, and whence they came, will be solved. Egypt and the Nile, and Arizona and the Colorado will be linked by a historical chain running back to ages, which staggers the wildest fancy of the fictionist. The wildest fancy of the fictionist. Under the direction of Professor S.A. Jordan, the Smithsonian is now prosecuting the most thorough explorations, which will be continued until the last link in the chain is forged. Nearly a mile-long tunnel underground, about 1,480 feet below the surface, about 1,480. The long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber, from which radiate scores of passageways, like the spokes of a wheel. Several hundred rooms have been discovered, reached by passageways running from the main passage, one of them having been explored for 854 feet, and another for 634 feet, approximately. The recent finds include articles which have never been known as native to this country, and doubtless they had their origin in the Orient. War weapons, copper instruments, sharp-edged and hard as steel, indicate the high state of civilization reached by these strange people. So interested have the scientists become that preparations are being made to equip the camp for extensive studies, and the force will be increased to 30 or 40 persons. Quote from Mr. Kinkaid's report, before going further into the cavern. Better facilities for lighting will have to be installed, for the darkness is dense and quite impenetrable for the average flashlight. The dark is darker there. In order to avoid being lost, wires are being strung from the entrance to all passageways leading directly to large chambers. How far this cavern extends, no one yet knows. But it is now the belief of many that what has already been explored is merely the barracks, to use an American term, for the soldiers, and that far into the underworld will be found the main communal dwellings of the families. If he refers to the Americans, maybe he's British. The perfect ventilation of the cavern, the steady draft that blows through, indicates it has another outlet to the surface. Mr. Kinkaid was the first child born in Idaho, and has been an explorer and hunter all his life. 30 years having been in the service of the Smithsonian Institute. Even briefly recounted, his history sounds fabulous, almost grotesque. Not sure what grotesque meant like back then. An old Webster's might give a better definition than we can have from the context here. First, I would impress that the cavern is nearly inaccessible. The entrance is 1,500 feet down the sheer canyon wall. Actually, it says 1,486. It is located on government land, and no visitor will be allowed there, under penalty of trespass. The scientists wish to work unmolested, without fear of archaeological discoveries, being disturbed by curios or relic hunters. Curio hunters or relic hunters. A trip there would be fruitless, and the visitor would be sent on his way. The story of how I found the cavern has been related, but in a paragraph. I was journeying down the Colorado River in a boat, alone looking for minerals, i.e. gold, some 42 miles up the river from the El Tovar Crystal Canyon. I saw on the east wall stains in the sedimentary formation about 2,000 feet above the riverbed. There was no trail to this point, but with great difficulty I finally reached it. Above a shelf which hid it from view from the river was the mouth of the cave. There are steps leading from this entrance some 30 yards to what was at the time an inhabited cavern, to the level of the river at the time. When I saw the chisel marks on the wall inside the entrance, I became interested, securing my gun and going in. During that trip, I went back several hundred feet along the main passage until I came to the crypt, in which I discovered the mummies. One of these I stood up and photographed by flashlight. A number of relics I gathered, which I carried down to the Colorado to Yuma, from whence I shipped them to Washington and the Smithsonian with details of the discovery. Following this, the main exploration was undertaken.